What's up, boss? You believe that? Hold on. Do you believe that?
No need to make it personal now. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a wonderful Friday. I was planning on doing a different video, but I want to give a shout out. Ari Wasserman giving me something to talk about and for interacting with me and a handful of the other Buffs fans on Twitter. Even though I disagree with him on a lot of what he had to say, we're going to break it all down. Appreciate everybody hopping in the chat. Zion, it's good to see ya. Okay. We'll keep this thing going for a little bit. All right. We'll keep it going. But y'all let me know how your day is going, what's on your mind. And I'm going to go like line by line, dissect this whole Ari Wasserman rant that he had on Coach Prime, because, guys, this is the issue that I have with it. I think some of the things that he was saying were totally fine and valid points, okay? Whatever, you can agree, disagree with them. But my issue is that then, in order to continue to make his point, then he just goes into hyperbole. Guys, so often I fight with y'all in the comments because y'all grade on this scale with the players of you're either elite or trash. And what happens in what's reality is that 99% of the players and coaches, they're somewhere in between elite and trash, okay? And he's exactly doing that same thing right now with Coach Prime, saying, hey, you're either elite or trash. Calling this whole thing a failure, saying his expectations were so high. We're going to go ahead and get into it and break it down. I'm going to go through his little rant and also talk with, highlight to y'all some of the interactions that we had on Twitter along with some other people from Buffs Nation. So, Linda, Eric, Zion, appreciate you guys being in here. And, let's go ahead and get this thing started, all right? Let me go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, we're going to also share the audio with this, okay? So it's a little bit small. I'm going to keep it small for, like, some copyright reasons. And as we interact with this, read some of the comments, I'll zoom in. So, let me go ahead. Shut off this music. Let's go ahead and get into this. Y'all let me know if you can't hear this, okay? Well, actually, let me start on this tab. He said, and Ari, man, if you're trying to make a point that people are going to listen to regarding Deion Sanders, somebody that a lot of people are very emotionally attached to, and how could I not be emotionally attached to Deion Sanders in some ways? Because, again, he's made a huge impact on the University of Colorado as an alum of the University of Colorado. Him being here is something special, okay? Now, I don't agree with everything he does, but starting this thing off by saying, I don't hate Deion Sanders, that is a terrible way to actually have people listen to you. Bro, stop that. He said, I'm disappointed that he isn't embracing being a college football coach in a way that would allow him to reach his unfathomable potential. Okay. I think that there are some different things that's totally fine. Saying, I think he could be doing this. That would lead to better results. That's totally fine. I might not agree with everything, but it's fine to say that. He won't go visit kids and seems disinterested in recruiting high school classes. Don't agree with that. We'll get into that. The fact that he seems disinterested because of this, then this is where he takes it to hyperbole. I feel like I'm watching him, forgot to spell check this thing, grammar check it, watching him fail in real time. I don't think he'll be at Colorado. I don't think he'll be the Colorado coach 2 years from now. Again, moving the goalpost. So often when Coach Prime was brought in around the time last year, we'd hear all these media heads, all these trolls, all these haters, whatever, just come in and say, well, just wait till he leaves after a year. And now people are trying to say that it's a dig. Oh, he would have left after 3 or 4 years. Dude, come on. Always moving the goalpost. So Let me go ahead and play this clip. We'll dive into it. I will pause at certain junctures of it to make my comments, and we'll see how this goes.
But the reason why Deion Sanders is so famous is because he's a showman. And I think people forget this. When he was playing football, he would dance and he on the way into the end zone, and it was awesome. He's a showman in press conferences. He has an
Is it weird that I don't really think that he's a showman in press conferences? Like, yes, he was at certain games last season, but I would call him a showman for other things that he does, not his press conferences.
explanation for everything. He is very funny. I find him to be engaging. I like listening to what he has to say.
Well, if you listen to what he had to say, you would probably have a more nuanced opinion than what you just gave.
But don't let the dancing and the singing and the trickery distract you from the fact that this is a results-oriented business.
Okay. I totally agree with Ari. Okay. I totally agree with him. This is a results-oriented business. Okay. Think about where we have been as a program over the last 20 years. Think about where we were just a year and a half ago. Okay. This man has the gall to get on here and say that this is a results-oriented business. And by every metric from 2022, you can see that there has been a sizable improvement. Okay. We're recruiting in the top 25 overall for the first time in freaking forever. For the first time that they've had like recruiting class rankings out for like the last 20 years, right? We had a 3-game win improvement this year. One of the most watched teams in college football this year. Okay. This guy does not understand how difficult it is to build a program up from nothing, particularly one that was dead in the water, that was Mountain West bound essentially a year and a half ago. Okay. And media heads like this guy will come on here and say, he's not doing, there's not enough results. Please, you do not truly appreciate the work that he has been doing, because it has been a black hole here for 2 decades. People just want to pass over that nobody in their right mind wanted this job a year and a half ago. I even said, after we fired Carl Durrell, why the hell would Deion Sanders ever come here? Okay. It's just funny how the goalpost moves, but let's continue on.
And the results for building a college football program that can compete at a high level are not there.
What an ignorant take. Okay, so again, you can criticize the strategy. Okay. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it, but it's totally right for you to criticize a strategy in terms of recruiting or how he's building the program or maybe the coordinators that he's hired. I understand that. But then he goes a step further in saying, like, this thing is, let's go back and listen.
Compete at a high level.
This thing cannot compete at a high level after 1 year. My brother, this program has been dead for 2 decades. They barely won 1 game in 2022. They were not even recruiting in the top 50 the year prior. And you want to say, after a year in which they flipped over the entire program staff and roster, aside from like 8 guys, that you're saying they haven't shown enough to win at a high level after a year? Dude, they were 1-11 in 2022. They showed a 3-game improvement this past year. You are more impatient than a child. Okay? And that is the issue that I have with some of y'all here in the comments, so often, is that, again, it's either you're either elite or trash. Okay? And there is not an appreciation of what it takes to truly build a program, okay? Or what it takes to get to being a winning team when you're at the bottom of the barrel, okay, as a program in FBS football. This guy does what all these people do that I have an issue with, which is terrible, because as a media head for The Athletic, somebody who works for The Athletic, I would have hoped that he could have a more nuanced opinion of this situation, a more educated, put together opinion about this, because he makes some really good points. But then he starts to hyperbolize, exaggerate his point to where then it starts to lose credibility. Now it just looks like you're just doing this for clicks or to make it just be about yourself. And now you're saying falsities. Now you're moving the goalpost. It doesn't make any sense, man. Be consistent. Let's continue on. So, after winning more games than you did in 2022, after getting like 80 new players and all this stuff, after winning more games, after being blown out way less, after having a much smaller margin of loss in your losses compared to 2022, this guy has the gall to say, you know what? I don't see the foundations of winning at a high level here, this program, after 1 year. It's like these guys expected it to literally just be like a fantasy football team. These guys who cover college football for a living, they should know that taking over a program like Colorado was not desirable, not for one reason, but for a multitude of reasons, okay? It has been a hard place to win. And you'd think you'd just have a better nuanced approach. But let's continue.
Are not there. Deion Sanders, his qualifications for being a college football coach at all is stardom.
Disagree with that. You could have said that when he was hired initially at Jackson State 3-4 years ago. But he does show some justification for being hired here at Colorado with what he did at Jackson State. So I don't think that's fair at all. That he has done more than over the last 4 years to justify himself being hired here.
An ability to recruit, and he is not doing it.
That is, again, he's not doing it the way that Ari wants. He is doing it. We have our second in a row top 25 recruiting class. It just hasn't looked the way that Ari Wasserman has wanted it to look. And so because of that, then he's going to say he sucks, essentially. You're either elite or trash in many of your worlds. Ari Wasserman is the same way.
Okay, you can say, okay, portal. That's
okay. And again, it's not the way that he wants to see it. So then he's just going to disregard the positives or disregard the strengths, disregard the results that don't favor the point he's trying to make. He's just going to disregard that information. Yeah. Let me continue on.
That's fine. He's done an okay job in the portal. I think Colorado.
He's done a really good job in the portal.
Colorado was much
number 1 class last year, top 3 class in the portal this year.
Much better last year, even though the record didn't show it than I thought they were going to be.
Okay, that's great.
I'm going to give him credit. But this is all the results of half-assed work.
And this is, again, where just because the strategy is different than what you realize or than what you're hoping doesn't mean that it's half-assed. Again, I think Coach Prime, I think Deion Sanders, he just has different priorities with how he wants to run his football program. But for you to say that it's a half-assed, lazy approach, I don't think is fair. I think his strategy is much different than what's conventional. And I think if Ari Wasserman would have actually spent time around Colorado fans, like, bit my tongue there, he would have realized that, like, yeah, so some of the ways that Coach Prime goes about running the program, it wouldn't fly at other schools. there's a reason why he's here. Okay. This was a relationship that could really work out because we're allowing him to do his thing in an unconventional, different way. And he's given the freedom to do that. And so I don't really feel like that's a totally fair criticism to just say it's half-assed. I think, again, you can get into saying, all right, like, I wish that he would travel more to recruit. All right, that's fine. But I don't see this guy, especially with how often the cameras are around, just fishing around and doing whatever. He's a promoter. Part of his role is to promote this university and to promote himself. He is bigger than the Colorado brand. And Colorado is okay with that. Rick George is okay with that. I'll continue on.
Imagine if he actually embraced this and did it completely and fully, how good he actually could be. And
fair point. Again, I have brought this up before. Ari, if he's listening to this, he probably shouldn't be, but yeah, if maybe he did a few in-home visits for some really important recruits, or hey, maybe he made some different game management decisions and we end up winning 6 games and going to a bowl game. I think it's personally reasonable to think that there were some things within his control, possibly that could have led to like a top 15 recruiting class, maybe. And I think that criticisms are fine. But then again, where he takes it is to this, you're either elite or trash. And because he's not doing these things, then that makes him trash. So we'll see how that goes.
And that's why I get frustrated. I don't think he sucks. I don't think he can't recruit. I don't think he's full of
But then watch what he says.
shit all the time.
And yeah, I think some of the stuff that he says in press conferences, it's coach speak. Some people don't realize that.
I just think that he is not embracing and going into the job the same way that other coaches are.
Yeah, no shit. No shit. What were you expecting? Because this is what I am expecting. Like, I'm expecting him to do his own thing, to stick to his strategy, and we've seen a plan and we've seen him stick to it. Where it's very transfer portal heavy. There's a lot of promotion. There's a lot of media. What exactly, this is what I don't get. He wants Deion Sanders to be Deion Sanders. Like, he was talking about all the things he loves at the beginning. But then he's like, because he's acting like Deion Sanders and not like Les Miles, that means he's not taking this job seriously.
And if he did, the potential of that is what I wrote about a year ago, that people are like, oh, proof of concept. They throw it in my face all the time. Because I thought when Travis Hunter got there and what we saw in the TCU game was going to be the beginning of something great, and nothing else has happened.
Again, he sounds like a child here. What were you expecting? Okay. Now, I think that we were a lot closer to winning some of those games than maybe it reflects on the record. But at the end of the day, you are what your record was. We're a 4-8 football team. No doubt. We were 1-11 football team year prior. And I think, okay, maybe the proof of concept wasn't as big, or the results aren't as big as maybe some of us were hoping for, but the results were still there, that this thing is moving in the right direction.
Sense. You can go on a book tour. You can go on speaking engagements. You're on late night television.
Yes, this is part of the job. And I don't think Ari understands that right now, like, everything attached to Coach Prime, Colorado is attached to Coach Prime. And that is one of the things that's very important right now about having him here, is this exposure. As a program that's been dead in the water for 20 years, he doesn't understand the importance of this. Yes, it's mutually beneficial to Coach Prime himself, as well as the University of Colorado. Now, I will say, when you're doing all of this press coverage, when you're having the TV shows, the documentaries, the media tours, all of that, it's important that you win. And you're not going to win this year bringing in a high school class of 30 people. So, or bringing in a class of 30 high school kids, rather, okay? But it's like, there's always something to move the goalpost about. The biggest thing that's going to help this program continue to recruit better is winning. And That's why you've seen us, again, double down on the portal. That is the quickest path, and that is the best path to winning more football games this year, is by doubling down in the portal. If you can't win games in your second year here with Shador and Travis and this impressive core, you've wasted it. I just feel like it's a total double standard, and it's totally hypocritical, because if he did go and sign 30 high school kids, right, and barely brought in any portal players, you know what Ari would be saying? That this guy actually doesn't really care about winning. He's got a star talent at cornerback and wide receiver. He's got a star son playing quarterback, and he just wants to recruit high school kids, and he doesn't really care about winning that much. You see, they're always going to be able to spin the narrative.
Do your job.
He is doing his job.
It's not hate. Everyone's
this is hate.
Hating on Deion. I'm disappointed in you.
No, because you're contradicting yourself literally every 30 seconds in this thing.
Deion. I'm watching him fail in real time.
And that's the bullshit that pisses me off with people like Ari Wasserman, is that you're either elite or you're trash. And because things don't look the way that he would like them to look, or he feels like Coach Prime has left some chips on the table, then he goes to say, I'm watching them fail. I'm watching him fail in real time. Ari, you are an embarrassment to covering college football, because you would know, if you took this job seriously, that this past year was not a failure at all. This is total hyperbole. This is stuff that I expect from people in the YouTube comments. This is not stuff that I would expect from a journalist covering college football for The Athletic. This is pathetic. Oh, you're not winning and in national title contention after 1 year? You must suck at your job, especially when you're taking over a school that's been dead for 20 years and coming off a 1-11 season. Dude, this is childish. This is a childish take right here. And professional media has to be better. Failure. Give me a break. By every metric you want to measure, we've been better. Maybe it's not to the level that you expected, but that's on you. Maybe for drinking a little bit too much of the Kool-Aid and not being able to put it down. You don't understand how hard it is to win here, or how hard it has been to win here.
I'm watching it happen in real time. I don't not think he will be the Colorado football coach 2 years.
Okay, that's totally fine. Many people were saying last year that he wouldn't even be here 2 years. Again, it says that for some reason. I don't understand, because this thing is moving in a positive direction, but it's not quick enough for people like Ari Wasserman. It's just not quick enough. Okay? There's no patience involved in sports anymore. Absolutely not. We're in a Denver Nuggets NBA Finals championship hat right now. We stuck with Michael Malone for like 8 years. Okay? No other team does that. Lakers don't do that. Knicks don't do that. Actually, Knicks are getting kind of close. Celtics don't do that. Sometimes demonstrating some patience can go a long ways in building something that ends up being great. And people like Ari Wasserman do not have patience. So, my guy Giuseppe commented here, made a great point. Said Deion's not perfect, but it's funny people forget where he came from. In 1 year, he brought in five-star players in the top transfer class overall in the Big 12, 22nd overall, which we never had anything close to. $21 million to the city of Boulder per game. Applications up 60% for out of state and 50% for African Americans. Okay. He also saved us in conference realignment. Yeah, he doesn't visit high schoolers in their home. He doesn't want to pay millions for a bunch of high school recruits who then hit the portal a year later. As an alumni, I appreciate that. Very fair point. Giuseppe, maybe it's Giuseppe, I'm sorry. Really well thought out. I do appreciate that Ari Wasserman is full on negative like many, but let's give Deion a full year of recruitment and see how he does in year 2. Yeah, especially after, again, we saw the results improve. And he comes out and says he didn't recruit. This is the bullshit that really frustrates me. Again, this is stuff that I feel like I would see from people in the chat or like random people on Twitter. But this guy's a journalist and he says he didn't recruit. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. He didn't recruit the way that Ari wanted, but he is recruiting. Now, you can criticize the strategy. I think that the strategy can be seen as a little risky. That's totally fine. But again, like I said a few minutes ago, if he was to be bringing in 30 high school kids this past year and only a few in the portal, Ari Wasserman and other media heads like this would be roasting Prime for not going hard in the portal. You can never please these guys. And then he went on to say something else that I just didn't agree with here. Yeah, here we go. Now, I appreciate the engagement from Ari because, hey, when you ask for the smoke, you know you're going to get it. And I said he did recruit. Maybe not the way you wanted. To say he flat out didn't recruit is fake news. Come on, man. And then here we go again, moving the goalpost. He is the only head coach in major college football that had zero contacts with recruits away from campus. If you're good with that, by all means, that's your opinion. But you'll realize sooner rather than later, you should, like me, that Deion Sanders is about Deion Sanders. He doesn't want to be a great coach. If he did, his behavior would be different. He'd be weaponizing his stardom in every, I think he meant to say every, but again, didn't spell check, in ever 5-star prospect high school hallways he can. And again, I have brought up a similar point that Ari's bringing up, is saying that I would like him to get on the recruiting trail a little bit more because I feel like it would really go a long ways. I think you can highlight Boulder and bring people to campus as well as hit the recruiting trail a little bit more. I think it's also fair to say that I think he has not traveled as much, whether it's been with the surgeries, rehab, all of that. And again, it's just not as high on his priority list as it is for other college football coaches. But because Coach Prime wants to spend his time differently, he then goes to categorize him as not being serious. I think it's just a different strategy. And I think that's a pretty lazy take, and it lacks context and nuance. Again, this is Deion Sanders. I think I need to remind people, Deion Sanders is a head football coach. Were you expecting him to behave like Urban Meyer? Like, this is what I don't get. The expectations. I don't understand why this is so difficult for people who even cover this stuff professionally. I said, always moving the goalpost. You don't understand the degree of impact he's on CU. Yeah. Are there things that could be done differently? Sure. But the results are looking up. You don't know how hard it is to win here. And then again, what he's been able to do for CU is unquestionable. But that's the disappointing part. If he could do this with the work he's putting in, what would it look like if he was truly busting his ass? No. What he means is, what if he was just doing it my way? Okay. I think Coach Prime, again, he just has different priorities for how he wants to work. Again, because he's not doing it the way that Ari wants, he is then categorizing Coach Prime as being lazy. I don't think he's lazy. I think he just has different priorities than a lot of other people. Why is it so hard for people to realize this? Yes, we have a celebrity head coach. Were you not thinking the priorities were going to look different? That's why I said no. Your point of your rant is saying he's failing in real time because you feel like he isn't taking this seriously. This isn't close to failure right now. I agree with you. The results could be better. Yeah. But if you take, but then you take it way too far and start ranting in hyperbole. And that's where it's like, that's where you lose credibility, Ari. You brought up some really fair points that if you don't become so emotionally riled up, if you're not just speaking in hyperbole, Like there's some nuance there that could have been expanded on, but you just take the easy way out in just wanting to categorize something different as lazy. Shame on that. You missed an opportunity to create a really good conversation, and instead you sound like so many of the other idiots on the internet. Victory saying here, Ari just doubling and tripling down on a terrible take. Now that you're engaging with knowledgeable CU fans, you can't come up with anything other than misinformation. He doesn't recruit. He's not busting his ass. All this while the recruiting data says otherwise. And there was one more point here that I did want to hit on. Another reply that he had to me. And I appreciate Ari for coming on and responding to some of my tweets. Yeah, here we go. The University of Colorado and surrounding areas are flush with cash now. As a result of this, we're talking about Colorado football in March. The plan worked. I just thought this was going to be much bigger than what it seems to be now, which is a ploy to coach his kids. Had millions for his financial advisor to work with and dip out. Deion Sanders is about Deion Sanders. Do you not do things for money? Do you not work for money? We all work for money. He's doing his job. He's making great money. He's a businessman. Again, you would do the same thing if you were offered $5 million to coach a football team. You would do it too. Okay? I would do it too. I'm not turning down that money. He isn't trying to be a great coach or building anything sustainable. That's so hypocritical because then you're saying, well, why aren't you recruiting high school players? But it's like, you understand the most important thing for Colorado right now is to win when it comes to long-term recruiting. You realize that, right? So how can you not see the strategy? It's pretty simple. They want to double down on the portal this year, get more veteran college football players in here, and give themselves the best chance to win right now, this year, because that's what matters. You imagine what the talk's going to be about Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, if they have a straight losing season? Like, how do you miss all of this? And that's the disappointing part because I actually thought he had a chance to do it. Bro, child, please. I said, you realize he's coached one season here, right? Not 5, in which they saw a 3-game improvement. These things take time. I swear you media heads are more impatient than children. If he's so great, why didn't he win a chip in his first year? Exactly. And there was one more response that I had here. It was about the Big 12. Yeah, but these guys are always moving the goalposts. Yeah. Because if he did, he'd be using his only qualification for being a coach, stardom, ability to recruit, to build a program with sustainability. This is a quick flip that may, if he's lucky, turn into 7 wins in a non-power conference. And then 1, okay, now he's, again, changing the goalpost. 7 wins. 7 wins isn't good enough here. The hell is your problem, dude? That's another 3-game improvement after this year. Then he goes on again to talk in hyperbole and continue to discredit himself in a non-power conference and then bolt. And I said, Big 12 isn't a Power 4 conference. Stop talking out of your ass, man. Nothing's ever good enough. Because if he got 7 wins, they're going to say, well, it wasn't in the SEC. It wasn't in the Big 10. Sorry, man. That's just the conference that we're in. This guy's always in the goalpost, and it's a really it's a damn shame that Ari Wasserman decided to take this approach because, again, I feel like there are fine criticisms to bring up in will this strategy work? But instead of the conversation being about understanding the strategy and talking about if the strategy is going to work, instead he just wants to label it as lazy and just wants to say that he sucks. And that's where it's a real damn shame because there was a really big missed opportunity to have actually a thoughtful and nuanced conversation, and he just ruined it. So with that being said, I will get to some of the comments. I mean, it's just like, is it the older you get, the more you just realize that people are like just as stupid as they were in like 6th grade? they're just in adult bodies now. Exactly, Zion. We can't keep throwing out the elite take with players. It's only a handful in college football. Yeah, we maybe got 3 on our team right now. I'm with you. Bud Elliott and Danny Kanell are the big haters. Yeah. Danny Kanell's is more sorry. Bud Elliott's more entertaining, if anything. I think he realizes, I guess him and Danny Kanell just kind of understand the corner that they put themselves in, and now they just play a part. But Ari Wasserman, I don't feel like he plays a part. And that's where my disappointment is with him in this rant. Yeah, Eric Morse, if another season like 4-8 happens, we'll have to examine and reevaluate everything. Yes, and that's a totally fine conversation to have. Again, let's talk about this strategy. It's a different strategy. It's completely different than what we've seen most college football programs and coaches do. Let's talk about that instead of just labeling it as full shit. The lack of critical thinking that people that cover this sport do is just mind-boggling sometimes. And again, moving the goalpost. He says, well, you forget about the portal. But then saying, you know what, a 3-win improvement this year, it's not good enough. Bro, shut the hell up. Pog LLC. If we flip Juju, I might take off work just to watch Twitter explode. It's going to be funny, that's for sure. Sam, what's going on? Y'all go check out Sam's take, as well as Really Flawed. David getting into people with it on Twitter is the funniest thing ever. Yeah, shout out to Matt McChesney. He always said, Dave, he's like, Dave, if you're going to talk about somebody on Twitter, just make sure to tag them, man. That's all. So I took that lesson. Hopefully you can see that I took his criticism to heart and worked with it here. Tagged Ari right in on Twitter with my response, my video response here. But yeah, it's it's kind of fun that we got something to talk about. Let's see here. What else we got? Sir Ken, what's going on? Appreciate the kind words. Mr. Hillsman, what's going on? Good to see you. Yeah, Ari Wasserman does not lift, bro. Peter's totally right. Yeah, I know that whole thing's funny. Bud and Danny said they don't know if 2 is a first round pick. Yeah, get out of here. They're just hating to hate. Absolutely. And yeah, with the Athletic, it's just really unfortunate because they're one of the publications that I have subscribed to for the past year, and I got to admit, man, I was disappointed with some of the coverage that we saw, not only in college football but some for the NBA, and yeah, that's why not renewing, and it's a shame that again this type of content that you just saw myself respond to, it's no different than the clickbait hyperbole that we see on FS1 and ESPN. And that's the most frustrating thing out of all of it. There was a really great opportunity to talk about the strategy, okay? The risks, the advantages, the disadvantages to all of this, okay? But then Ari just wants to take the different approach, pin it on Coach Prime as he's a lazy individual, somebody who's about himself, all this stuff. And these are just lazy ways to make sense of it. Again, sometimes things that I think are fun in sports is when things are done against the grain. Moneyball years ago, right? Fun stuff. Let's talk about the NBA and the Oklahoma City Thunder, right? Trading for 1 million draft picks. And now we're starting to see this whole thing come to fruition. The process with the 76ers. Some of these things work out and some of them don't. And I I don't understand how it's so hard for people to see something different that's being done in college football and not approach it with some critical thinking and nuance. Is it because he's black? I'm sure that's part of it for some people. No, I mean, no doubt. No doubt. Some people don't even realize it, but hey, they're able to find the things that they don't like about black people more than they are white people. It's just sometimes how it is with white people. I can say this because I'm part of white people. Yeah, and this is the right point. Scobuffs Daily. If you want to see change, you can't be afraid to make these changes. Absolutely. And we're going to see how this whole thing goes. Again, since I started this channel, I have talked about this whole thing, this whole approach that Coach Prime is taking as a big experiment. Okay. Why is that so hard for people not to grasp? I guess that's why you don't find me getting too upset or like splitting hairs over certain things. Again, like there are things that we can disagree with. Again, I would like to see him hitting the recruiting trail more. Okay. But again, we're still seeing the results going the right way. And okay, if we don't have a winning season here this year, I'll probably talk about that more. Right. But right now, I'm keeping this thing open-minded. We've seen growth. We're seeing growth in results in all of the ways that Ari, wanted to ignore. And we'll see how year 2 of the experiment goes. I'm pretty excited. I'm hoping that we at least get to 7 wins. Right now, I got us at 9, maybe 8, maybe 9, something like that. And maybe we could win more than that. But it's people like him. You're either trash or elite. You're either elite or trash. You're either a national title contender or you're a failure, where you really rob people consuming college football content of like true wisdom, true education about the sport, true understanding of like how building a program normally goes. And it's just a damn shame because people with that big of a platform should be better than that. That is something, Ari, that you should expect, or that y'all should expect from channels my size. Not people with the following he has. So, yeah, exactly. So, anyways, we'll see how this year 2 goes. All the racists are going to be pissed off as usual. We'll see how all that goes. But I'm going to get out of here, guys. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Good Friday. Reverend BJ Nelson. He is a confused man. Poor little Tink Tink. Yes. And please say a prayer for our 25 recruiting class, because we got some haters to silence, right? We'll start getting there with the recruiting. Okay. Again, the majority of the guys that we have offered have not committed anywhere. If this were any other coach here just doing the standard stuff, would I be more concerned that we don't have a signee yet? Absolutely. But this whole thing is a grand experiment, and we're just going to see how it all plays out. Things are looking good, guys. So I'm out of here. Y'all have a great one. Have a wonderful Friday, Easter weekend. And as always, y'all, Sco Buffs.